I want to measure what's best for the body. I've done that. I've spent almost a career doing that. I've seen the science. I've listened to the athletes, and I've learned that ingredients that are already existing before humans got here are better choices nutritionally than anything coming out of a laboratory. I understand I may well be in the minority, but I'm not trying to win over 100% of the audience. I'm only trying to win over those of us that agree with me that adding salt to something doesn't make it better.
So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode Who Knows of the Jason Scalora Show, here today with Seth Bovio. Seth is an entrepreneur. He is an athlete. He is a speaker. There's a lot of things, and we're going to dive into that. But it's a funny story on how Seth and I met. I'm going to give you the quick breakdown. So obviously I own a business, CJ Media, and I was filming at Paul's camp. And Paul Harris, he has a basketball camp, and Seth came to give a speech to the kids. And when Seth gave his speech, I made the first time grave mistake of taking the battery out of the camera mid-film because it was dying, and the whole speech was gone. And so then after the speech, I felt horrible because I was really looking forward to giving him the speech. I just loved the way he was speaking. I didn't really get any benefit from it. Like, there was no like Seth came so that he would pay me to do the speech. Like, we didn't even know each other going into him talking. I just really wanted to get him the speech because it was genuinely a good speech. And I was like, okay, this is exciting. It's the first thing I did when I got home, and I look at the file and it's corrupted because I took the battery out. And so I got a hold of him. Long story short, told him what happened. And I was like, listen, I would love to get you on the podcast because, not for my benefit, but just solely to get your message out there and hopefully find another way to get your speech out there with high quality camera equipment and audio. And so one thing led to another, and now we're here. So yeah, funny story, but that's how we got here. Yeah. So the leading question that I actually wrote down, I was listening to one of your interviews. I wanted you to talk about your mom and how she influenced your path with health and business. I was listening to a couple of the stories that you told about how she was a big time runner, very good at it, obviously, and how she impacted your trajectory, your life, and ultimately the business.
Yeah, she was a big influence on everything I do, and she has a license plate that has the vanity plate. It's the number 10 and then ACITY, tenacity. And that's what she taught me. She's tough. I'm one of 6 kids. And if I was ever having a bad day, she'd say, Seth, life's tough. And there was not a lot of babying in the house. And it really made me stronger. And as a kid, she became a runner while I was a kid. She was always an athlete, but I remember she ran her first race, and I think she won. Maybe it's a 5K, local 5K. But I'd watch, and both my parents were runners, and they both ran marathons, and they both ran sub 3-hour marathons, which is a legitimate, fast marathon. And we watched them train as kids, and it really impacted me. And now I look at myself today. And when COVID started for me at least, April 3rd, 2020, I decided, well, when I'm fit, I'm strong, and I don't catch things. So I'm going to get really fit really fast. And I ran 1,001 straight days till December 30th of last year. And just the toughness. And I don't want to run from something. I want to be strong so that I can handle it. And I got that from my mother. I remember the Cleveland Marathon. My mom ended up getting 2nd overall for the women. She got a really cool trophy. But she had a broken toe, and she didn't realize it. She had a hurt toe, but she had a broken toe when she ran that race. And that's toughness. And I remember being out on the course. My little brother was maybe 5, and I was maybe 16. And I have 4 sisters, too. I don't remember that they were there, but they probably were. But my brother and I he's in a stroller in front of me, and I'm standing there. And he was in a stroller. He couldn't have been 5. He must have been 2 or 3, and I must have been 14. But there were a bunch of women. This is 1980s. A bunch of women, early 1980s. Bunch of women waiting for their husbands to come. That's the way it was, standing on the side of the road waiting for anyone to come. And maybe the winter came by and a few runners come by and I don't know how many runners go by, but then the first woman must have come by. And then not long after, my mother came by. And I just remember cheering, come on, Mom. And I don't remember what my little brother was doing, but he's probably going crazy in his stroller at 5. But all the women looked at me like, your mother is beating my husband? You will never run again. And, so that's the house I grew up in. Her mother, my grandmother, wrote books about herbs, and herbs specifically along the Rio Grande. She had a macrobiotic diet, and it's funny how people rub off on us and we learn things from people without really realizing it. And now in my 50s, I really appreciate all of my grandparents and the lessons they each taught me about humility or science or compassion, all of those things. And that grandmother, my grandma Leonora, she wrote books about herbs with her mother. She lived in 97, and she had a really witty sense of humor. I remember one time I was spending a summer with her in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I walked into, we had tea every afternoon that I was around, and she said, don't feed the dogs. Actually, a nurse came by and said, don't feed the dogs, they're stuffed. And she looked at him in awe. My poor dogs. And she just, everything, she was witty, so the influence from my mother had a lot of, she learned from her mother. As a kid, we would eat escarole and eat liver, and I didn't realize why until much later, and then I realized this is all marathon training, protein and nutrients. And here's my business now, basically nutrients.
Wow. That's amazing. So was your family like really science-oriented growing up?
No, not at all. My dad's an engineer, so he's very science-oriented. Mm-hmm. But none of us were... No, we were athletes, healthy, but not, no. There are some scientists in the family, but not in my house.
Interesting. So when did you start Superior? Like, I know the story with your wife when you came up with the name, but what happened, what transcribed to really get things kickstarted?
I wanted to start a business to do something for the right reasons. And I think I started my first business in 1991. And I remember somebody saying that you need to start a business and you'll probably fail, but that's how you learn and then you'll succeed. And I'm like, not me, I'm not going to fail. And I think I failed 3 times. But I wanted to do something good. I wanted to feel good about what I was doing. And what happened to me was I would constantly get support from investors or from the outside, and they would be awed by, oh, you're in such great shape. I'm like, I'm only in the same shape as everybody else like me. But they would be awed by, oh, wow, what's an electrolyte? But the money in the category of electrolytes my whole career has been pretty substantial, and it continues to grow. And people still don't really know what electrolytes are. But in making products, I would always have to compromise because I couldn't afford to make it the way I wanted to make it. So I worked for other companies. I was perhaps the president or the formulator, both, main salesperson, janitor, picked and packed the product. Maybe I did all the work, but at the end of the day, I was never in charge. I just worked for whoever had the money and wrote the checks. And so I worked for other companies. I was the front man for other companies. I actually, I remember I was working for one of those companies, and somebody called and said, we want to woo you over. We want you to help us start a new brand. And I remember the guy came to New York City, where I lived and worked at the time, and he was so excited and enthusiastic, and his energy was awesome. And it was fun being around him. And I remember he wanted to go to a shoe store that only Manhattan had, or a brand that only was in Manhattan. And so we went there. I'd never heard of it, and I've never been back since. But the experience was great. And so he said, you're perfect. All you have to do is exactly what you do. 1,000 accounts. We want those 1,000 accounts. We're going to pay you a ton of money. And so then we got to the point of sitting down and talking about what the actual product was going to be. And he said, this is the best part. We're going to make a product that costs virtually nothing to manufacture. We're going to use sodium chloride, that's table salt, basically free. Go to a gas station, ask for salt, it's free. And we're going to use, a manufactured sweetener of some sort, which is also quite inexpensive. And I said, but what about the electrolytes? He says, sodium chloride, it's table salt. It's an electrolyte. It's all you need. We got to convince people, tell people it's good, and you're healthy, you're strong. And this is me 25 years ago, and I actually was healthier and stronger and fitter, and I would have been perfect at it. And but I wanted to do something for the right reasons, and I remember the money, and it ended up that brand came to market, went big, and they found somebody to be the front man, and that guy was even stronger and more fit and better looking than I was, so they probably did even better than they would have with me. But I just, that's not why I'm doing this. I wanted to start something and build it myself in front of my kids. When I started Superior 7 years ago, my kids were 6, 8, and 13, and I have a lot of confidence that this whole experience has rubbed off on them. We have 2,300 independent accounts now. We won't sell to any distributors. We won't work with any mass markets. We're not going to work with anybody that has any control over what we do. The word exclusivity to me means run and hide. I want a brand. If an event has an exclusivity contract with a product that's like ours, I don't want to be there anyway. But if we're there, we want that other product right next to us. And I'm amazed, really, when I work with other companies that make products like mine, how little they know about the science of electrolytes and how little they know about even what an electrolyte actually does. And so I started Superior Electrolytes 7 years ago with close family and friends. Never had an outside investor. We never will. We were profitable year one. And we do almost all the work ourselves.
Wow. That's amazing. My main question to you is because, listening to the story, listening to, you turning down most likely a tremendous amount of money so that you can maintain your morals and values, it's admirable. But the question is like, what brought you to that point? Was it parenting? Was it a certain life experience? Did you mess up in the past? Did you make a mistake with doing something against your values, or what was that?
Jason, I want to be careful. I'm really just a guy with a job that is trying to do the right things. I'm raising 3 kids. I want them to be strong, independent women, 3 girls, and I'm a girl dad. And it's really, I have a job, and the job pays for everything that they do, and I want them to do everything they want to do, travel and learn and be leaders themselves. I think as a kid, maybe my dad he had patents, and he was a design engineer, and he was really smart, the smartest guy I knew. And yeah, he was a scientist, but he had bosses, and sometimes he'd get upset because there'd be a promotion and maybe they'd hire from the outside rather than somebody loyal inside. And he always did well, but his changing jobs and why and how and working for boards of directors really had an influence on me. So I think that what shaped me was I found out early that I could sell products. And something my dad taught me also was he designed engine mounts, which are a $5 rubber piece that goes underneath the engine of, say, a Chrysler. And that little rubber piece keeps the engine from vibrating. and it keeps the ride quiet. And it's a $5 piece. And there's a sales rep that sells that $5 piece. And I think my dad was not really the rep, but he was the designer, so he had to sell it to whoever was going to sell it to the company that was going to buy it.
Right.
And I just remember he explained to me that the sales rep gets a commission on the $5, but there's also a sales rep for a 747. And you don't have to sell a lot of those for any percentage to be a significant amount of money.
Right.
And and then I had a job where I worked in the financial industry for my dream company. It was a great job. And I was 20, maybe I was 21 when I got hired, but right out of college in California. And it's the cool job. And I enjoyed it, but I realized that the more I worked, the more successful the company would be, and I would always get a percentage of that, but I really wouldn't ever, it wouldn't really be me. And there were thousands of people that did what I did for that company alone. And so I kind of wanted to do something for myself. And I'm competitive. I play games. I want to win games. My kids, if they beat me, they earned it. I don't let my kids beat me. My 4-year-old, if she ever beat me at horse, it's because I'm terrible, but I tried to beat her. And that really, I wanted to be good at something. Running was okay. Made it to Boston, ran a decent race there. Went to state in high school, ran in college a little bit. But I am good at communicating and selling, and I learned electrolytes from some of the smartest people around at a time when the electrolyte business was birthing, essentially, or being started, and the first competitors to the big brand from the 60s came out. I've seen a ton of brands come and go, and I think that, again, I'm not trying to make up for anything. I'm just trying to do something that I feel good about, and as a man, I want to produce, and I sleep well at night knowing that I believe I'm doing well.
That's amazing. I mean, the reason why I try and dig on these things is because to me it's searching for your reason why and searching for how it got there has been the thing that's been most helpful for me personally, because growing up, I didn't always have the most pure intentions with relationships, with trying to make money, with trying to do really anything. I don't think of myself as a bad person, but, it's been a real process over the past, 6-7 years for me to try and transform my life and transform who I am. And the big thing has been adopting philosophies from people who are successful in the areas of life that I want to be successful in, not just money and business, but in life and philosophy and sticking to your morals and values. And the thing that's been the most helpful for me has been looking at why they do what they do. Were they similar to me when they grew up? Did they make shitty decisions in the past? How were they when they were in college? How were they when they were in high school? Was that shaped from their parents? And to me, it's almost like I want people to hear why you became the person because it's easy for you to sit there and just say the sentence of, yeah, I just want to abide by my morals and values and I want to do right by my kids. Harder when there's a 7-figure check in front of you that's sitting on the table when you could, transform your business monetarily. And to me, it's I want to know where that really comes from, of like were you always just an amazing person? Or was there something is there some mantra that runs through your head? Is there a story that runs through your head? Is there someone's voice that runs through your head? Is it a combination of those things? Because it's truly admirable, and I know that you're very humble about it. But I think it's important for, at least for me, and definitely for the audience, to understand where that goodness comes from.
Well, I was a fringe kid. I got good grades. I was smart, but finding something where I really wanted to apply myself was sometimes not that easy. And I remember we had a science experiment in high school. And the job was you had to use straws and you had to protect an egg, a fresh egg, and drop it off the building, off the school. And it had to survive the fall. And everybody would take the straws all the years, all the winners, everyone that ever did it would take the straws and either wrap them around the egg with so many layers, or they would build a triangle and trap the egg that way and then make layers and layers of straws. And there was no limit. Maybe there was a limit on straws. I don't remember, but I wanted to do that. I loved that. That project was great. And I remember the teacher, Mrs. Jackson. I really applied myself to that experiment. And I gave my egg a name. And I know I named the egg after somebody that challenged me and motivated me. And so, again, I was a fringe kid, but I was a good kid, and I was competitive. And so I built a box out of straws, and the egg was loose and could bounce around inside there. And that was my entry. It survived. The egg survived. He did survive. And I think that's really how I was growing up. I had great friends, and those friends are still my closest friends, and many very, very successful, all successful, but some very successful. And we've all heard you're collectively an average of your 5 closest friends in many ways. And I'm living proof of that, and average is the correct word. If I'm lucky, maybe I'm a little below average, but I think in college I was, I was the one that they wondered about, and I own that now, but it was only that I wanted something a little bit more, and the more wasn't like what you're talking about. It wasn't a contract. My first job was my dream job, and it paid a ton, and I made bonuses, and it was great. And I had a 10-year contract. At the end of 10 years, I got a lot of money for just being there for the 10 years. And I walked away, and my boss, who I really liked, told me it was the biggest mistake I would make my whole career. And I thought about that. I still think about it occasionally. And if we were counting dollars, it probably was the biggest mistake of my career, aside from the time that guy came to New York City. Wanted me to front a salt brand, but anyway, that's my answer.
Okay, who was the name on the egg?
I'm not saying.
Okay,
it was. I guess I can say it was Jumpin' Jerry. Guess who Jerry was?
Okay,
nobody knows.
Okay, fair enough.
Jerry was good to me.
Fair enough. I think the thing where I want to poke about a little bit is more on the psychological end, because you're talking about your 5 closest friends, so to speak, but there's a place where that comes from, and so for me, growing up, I didn't always have the nicest friends, the friends that were treated people the most kind and were not exactly just not the nicest, just to put it simply. And for me, one of the most transformational things was realizing where that came from. And a big part of that was myself, and a big part of that was just through parenting. And one of the things that I had to come to terms with was understanding that if I wanted to make my life better, and I wanted to transform myself, I needed to get around people who lived a life where I wanted that life. I wanted that aspect of their life, their kindness, their empathy, their work ethic, their drive, whatever it may be. But that came from something outside of myself. That came from teachings from other people. That came from advice when I didn't want it. That came from failing. And that came from, my sophomore year of high school when I thought I was going to be JV captain and nobody voted for me because it turns out I was actually the biggest asshole in the field, not the nicest athlete on the field. And these things that were character shaping moments for me really turned into me understanding the things that I need to do and the friends that I need to move away from and the people that I needed to add into my life. And the reason why I say that is because I'm curious on what that was for you. What got you to be around those 5 people? What transformed you? Listening to you now, it seems very clear that you and I are very, competitive people. And that's a big driver in terms of just your work ethic and your discipline and your drive to want to just do more and build more and be successful and live the best possible life that you can. And that, for some is God, for some is biology, whatever words you want to put to it, is something external that was given to you. But when it comes to the 5 friends, where do you think that comes from? Was that from parenting? Who was that from?
Just placement. Where I was and who I was and what I wanted to be. So if I go through my 5 fingers, my 5 friends, I can picture each of them and one-word descriptions of who they are. One is the guy that when he shows up in the room, everybody wants to hear what he has to say. And gosh, to be around that guy, that's fun. And then another one is maybe the most honest and loyal and dependable. And another one was a guy I met professionally working at that first job in California. And he had already been in the business for years, but he had gotten a job at the same company as me, and he had the same position, but he already had the license to do that job, and I had to pass the tests and all that. And so he basically, he had the same job as me, except he didn't have to study and pass a test. So he just hung around and annoyed me all day long and kept me from learning. Thank God I passed the test. He went from annoying to just somebody that, again, honesty was something that he didn't hold back. If we were in the car with somebody else, he would ask something that I'd never have the guts to ask, and it embarrassed me. And anyway, that's another one of them. And then work ethic, a 4th friend, it's work ethic. And he's a mentor and a friend. And I'm close with all these people today. And just really how to be responsible and how to work and how to clean. And, when you're mopping a floor, you don't spread the water over the wood. You actually grind the dirt or whatever's stuck on the wood off the wood. That's how you properly mop. I will go to my grave knowing that less than 50% of humans actually know how to mop. I know it, but I know how. And then the 5th friend would be, have to be somebody that taught me love and caring and. That's how we were shaped, and that'd be my wife, and she taught me a lot of what I do today, and being right about that. That's to be so lucky to be right, and about who to pick as friends, and a wife. Just luck and placement, and it's fortunate.
You're very humble about it.
Please, I feel like I'm. I'm showing off.
Well, because here's the thing is, as much as you can say luck, and as much as I do agree with that, you're in America, you're in a free country right now. Like, we can go down the bottleneck of how lucky we are to just be here. But with that in mind, there is a certain level to where you cannot attract or maintain certain people in your life that are at a certain level of success if you are not already at least a comparable level. Because if you're at a level of discipline, if you're at a level of emotional maturity, if you're at a level of X, Y, and Z, you name it, and somebody else is much higher or lower than you, you won't be able to maintain those friends because they're not going to want to be around you, or you're not going to want to be around them. And I'm sure that you have various examples of that in business and personal life and friends and, or whatever. And to me, I'm trying to figure out what brought you to the point to where you could deserve, or where you could earn these people to want to stick around you, to be, because if you're friends with people who are super successful, who are super kind, who are super generous, who have loving relationships, who are empathetic, who change the world for the better, then there is something about you that you've cultivated throughout your own life that has made them want to be around you, especially if they're one of your 5 closest friends. And so I'm trying to poke and prod and figure out what you did to make yourself that way.
They wavered, I'm sure. And I've asked my wife that same question, and she says she just had faith. She knew it'd work out. So I got lucky. I was a little bit probably over persistent, and maybe I was just fun enough that I was worth keeping around. But I will say that I'm sure at least 3 of the 5 wavered on, from their side. But we make our luck. Yeah, it's true, but it's not 50-50, and I got lucky often. And even in business, I put myself out there. I took chances. I think the first business idea I ever had, which is not in the business I'm in right now, I started a company called the New York Matter, and we had a Cinemap, and it was a map of Manhattan Island, and it had Central Park in the middle, and it had graphics of where physically each movie theater was, and we were going to pass it around Times Square, and it had the shows, the plays, and where everything is, and it would actually show physically where that theater or show was, to make it easy for somebody that didn't know Manhattan to find it. And we had sketches, and I had an artist who was a great friend, who's not one of the 5, but a great friend I wish he could have been. And it was a great idea. And the first person I pitched the idea to a bank to be an advertiser, and they were in. But I just didn't have the maturity to really, I was too young, too immature. And
how old were you?
23, 24. I had worked for that dream job for 2.5 years. So 23, 24, we're talking 1991, 92. And then I went back and got my dream job back. They took me back. Not the same company, but went back to that for a couple of years and sort of built myself back to where I'd be ready to do something on my own. And still failed a couple more times after that, but then I had some successes. And then how we measure our success, what is a success? Is a success, retirement with $10 million in the bank, and what's enough? And when I got to the point where I realized that all that was within reason, well within reach, then it really became, all right, really, what really matters. And I have, discussions with friends, and, my last thought, if I had this discussion, I had a not a close friend, but a friend passed away recently, and it was sad, and I knew him, and I liked him. We weren't close, and but we knew each other. We had a history. I went to the same school, and he's my age exactly, 56. So it had one of my close friends and I were, talking about, what the last thought would be. And number one, we first talked about how, this a little chilling, and stay fit, stay strong, get rest. These things really matter. But, we both discussed, kind of what the last thought would be. And both of us, just mine would be, I'd go one by one through my 3 kids and where they are, and are they ready? And gosh, I want to be around forever. And but that's what really matters. And I had a non-compete from selling a brand or selling my portion of a brand, and I live near the beach in New York, and I got to spend one summer, and my kids at this point were 10, 4 and 2 or something like that, 10, 5 and 3. 10, 5 and 3 would add up correctly. And I got to spend every single day at the beach. We would drive on the beach, 4-wheel drive onto the beach every day, watch the whales, see the dolphins,
wow,
run up the beach 3 miles to the next beach up, 3 miles back, 6 miles every day on the beach, 12-minute miles. When if I ran on the road, it'd be 7-minute miles. But because of the way the water is and the soft sand, and I'd run barefoot so I'd get my feet wet. If I ran with shoes, I'd run up on the sandy part of the beach where the water doesn't get you, and it's even softer. And so barefoot was easier. But I spent that whole summer with my kids, and I told them, this don't get used to this, but let's really enjoy this. And it really, I read the Stephen Jobs book, and if you look at my website, you'll see some of the quotes still there. And that book had a huge influence on starting my company. And I watched The Wire. That was one of the top 3 shows ever. And I remember my wife looking at me, and I'm working my way through all the seasons of The Wire, and I had maybe my AirPods on, and she let me get away with it. But boy, it was that time. But that was really, I remember sitting on the beach and thinking, I am going to start from nothing. I'm going to build a brand, and I'm going to do it with and in front of my kids. And we've had packaging in bedrooms and the basement and the garage. And, they talk about back to Stephen Jobs. He started his business in a garage. Well, I started mine in more rooms than that. And it was a couple of years before I actually had my first space for the business. And now we have 3. But it really, that's what matters, and that's what drives, I think, all of us is, who can we rub off on, and can that be good? And that's one of the things that drives me today. I feel great about it.
That's amazing. That really is amazing. What was the journey like from starting in your own house to then, not only 3 places, 3 warehouses, but working with Olympic teams? I don't even know if we've mentioned that, but you work with some of the most tremendous athletes in the world.
That was before, and we didn't really talk about that. But I was a good runner in high school, and some of the guys I competed against, I stayed close with, and they ended up running in Olympics. And one was a partner of one of the businesses that I owned that was a minor success, and the other was a main endorser for that product. And they made their money on shoe contracts, and that's really how an Olympic runner makes most of their money. And they did well, and but we would have a smaller contract, or they'd have a piece of the pie of the company. And so then I got to work with many of those athletes, and I got to meet some really special, world-class, famous athletes. I was in the room of I picked up at the airport athletes, and it was a part of my past. And I got to make an electrolyte drink in the dugout of one of the most famous dugouts that exists in the history of the world. And it was pretty cool. And I remember a former player coming by and with an accent sort of saying, what flavor are we having today? And just realizing, who was that? Wow. And that's all my past. None of that really, it all had an effect on what I do. But at the end of the day, I will watch a commercial of somebody selling a product, somebody very famous that might not even use that product. Of course they're going to use it. They have to drink it, or but what I mean is, it's not really who they are. It's an endorsement, and my company, we don't pay anybody to use our product. We never have, and I don't believe, as long as I'm in control, we never will. And I get people will ask, I want to work for you. I want to be affiliate marketer. That's where all the money is right now, is affiliate marketing online. We don't do that. And that's basically where I find somebody that looks good and is healthy, and I say, look, just you have 500,000 followers. I'm going to give you $1 for everybody that you connect to my product. And that's how some of my but it's tremendous. I get it. but I don't want to do that. I want to focus on the ingredients. And I believe in 2023, my product is gap better, with space in between better, more so than my competition today than it would have been 40 years ago.
Wow. What makes you confident in saying that?
I use 5 ingredients in my formula that are found in nature. And by that I mean if we go outside the window, whether it's underneath the soil or growing out of the soil, something that is physically in existence right now as opposed to created in a laboratory. I'm not opposed to anything created in a laboratory. There are miracles created in the laboratory. However, I have 5 ingredients in my formula that are found in nature. And any one of those 5 ingredients alone, without the other 4, I believe makes my product better than 90% of my competition. And I can look you in the eye and have a ton of confidence that these ingredients will make our blood better. And if our blood's better, it transports more oxygen. That's what electrolytes do. And I'm in a category where the number 1 ingredient is free. It's table salt. There are no salt caves made out of table salt. I can go to any holistic wellness, natural foods, mass market. I mean, even the biggest retailers in the world, the Marts and the Gets, and they all have salt lamps for sale. They're not made out of table salt. Table salt does not have the ions. It doesn't carry energy. It's actually not good for us. I check every day. I go to the American Heart Association almost every day and just make sure their opinion hasn't changed on sodium. It raises our blood pressure. We should cut it, not increase it. And I have companies that compete against me that will look you and look me in the eye and say, oh, no, you need more salt. I had a conversation with an athlete who was a pretty good athlete. And when I was a little better as a runner, we used to always tell athletes, if you can beat us, and I had another athlete that was even better than me that worked with us. He's a doctor now. But we would say, if you can beat us, then we'll consider sponsoring you. And that was back in the old days when I worked for a company that had a board of directors and a ton of money, and that's all they wanted to do is sponsor athletes. But I had a conversation with someone that was a good athlete, but not as good as I was when I was their age and good, but good. And we're talking way far away. The Olympians are done a half an hour before we're done, but still pretty good. And I remember we were talking about, they said they need a bucket of salt. Their body, they leave a trail of salt behind. They need a ton of salt. Why don't we have more salt? You need more salt, blah, blah, blah. And that was the conversation. And I had no argument with anything he was saying. He does leave a trail of salt behind because he is consuming way too much salt, and the body rejects the salt and leaves it behind or on the skin. I mean, I see salt on baseball caps in the summer, and that's rejected sodium. Body didn't use that sodium. We all have too much sodium. But I like to say, a healthy food would be a chickpea. Chickpeas. I've never had anyone tell me chickpeas aren't good for us. Chickpeas. They have protein. They have about 100 milligrams of potassium. They have 3 milligrams of sodium. That's a handful of fresh chickpeas. Now, if I can that, it's going to have everything that it had, probably. But it'll definitely have, in a can, 300 milligrams of sodium. That's most of our competition right there. I don't believe the canned version is healthier than the fresh version. I think 90% of the people we sell our product to think the canned version's better. And out of that 90%, a lot of them want to add more salt on top of it to get to the 1,000 milligrams that some of the brands in our category supply. Now, I don't believe my family of 5 consumes that much sodium in a day, unless somebody opens a bag of chips, but that doesn't even have that much sodium. So that's why I believe, and I've seen it before. I remember in the 80s, somebody came out with a product that was free to make. It was glucose and sodium, and it was fantastic. And it was straight profit. I mean, 99% profit. And, spend the money on marketing. And those brands, that brand doesn't exist anymore. And I've seen other ones come and go, and I've seen a lot of brands come and go. But at the end of the day, I don't believe that the American Heart Association is going to someday come out and say, we were wrong, you need more sodium. I don't see it happening. And it's fascinating to me when I have a conversation with somebody that's extremely healthy and they insist that they need more sodium.
Why would they insist that?
The marketing's so tremendous. I mean, tremendous marketing. I've never seen any science that shows we need more sodium. I've been in a lot of labs myself testing osmolarity and absorption of minerals. Human muscle cells can only absorb so much sodium. There's a reason why all the food on the planet has more potassium than sodium. An orange might have 75 milligrams of potassium and 1 milligram of sodium. A serving of spinach might have 200 milligrams of potassium and 2 milligrams of sodium. I think eating healthy food and drinking spring water is perfect. And find me the sodium. I mean, get a whole shopping cart of produce, and there's not much sodium in there. And but that's where all the nutrients are. What are the nutrients? They're the minerals that are found in nature, like magnesium and potassium and selenium and zinc and phosphorus. And I don't believe you make any of those foods better by sprinkling table salt on top. Now, you could sprinkle a sea salt on there, and now you're going to get some minerals. Don't use too much, but yeah, that makes sense to me. But to add 2 minerals that we all have enough of, there's a ton of evidence that we all have plenty of sodium, and there's a ton of evidence that we're depleted of the other minerals that are considered electrolytes.
Mm. So you just listed off the 5 minerals. I was hoping actually you could break it down, because I know there's going to be quite a few health nuts that are around my age that don't really know a whole lot about the mineral game. Most of what we look into is really, macronutrients, but not too deep into the minerals. I think just due to a lack of education and like you were talking about is the phenomenal marketing for the contrary. And so I think it would be super helpful if you were to just break it down to do almost like a third grade reading level of what are the five minerals and why are each so important for you?
Well, there are about 80 minerals that we need. Mm-hmm. But I got to work with people that won marathons, people that won medals, gold ones, and at that level, really, what your body can absorb really matters. We have a competitor that says we replace what you lose when you sweat. Well, I have no interest in replacing what I lose or you lose when you sweat. I want to replace what you actually use when you sweat. What is your muscle cells using? So you mentioned macronutrients. Sodium is a macronutrient. You need milligrams of that. You need milligrams of potassium. But I will argue, and I will be challenged by my competition. They will say you need more sodium than potassium, and I will say, okay, you're right, but you don't. I think you need more potassium than sodium. And they will say, but look at that guy. He's marketing our product, and look how strong and fit he is. And I'm not going to argue. He's really strong and fit. I get that. However, here's my resume, real food. Find me any food that has more sodium than potassium. Anything that's found in nature. I don't think we can make food better. I don't think we can engineer a carrot to be better than the first carrot that came out of the soil. And I may be wrong, and I admit that. But I don't want that engineered one. I want the original one. My kids all have their own gardens, and one of them, they all grow different things. And one of them has some pretty funky looking cucumbers. And we use one of the main ingredients of a cucumber as one of the 5 sources of minerals in our product. That's silica. Silica, We use bamboo stem instead of cucumbers because a cucumber will rot in 5 minutes. But the gel that surrounds the seed of a cucumber, that's silica. That's hydrating skin and hair. I want hydrated skin and hair. And I'm a runner too. I'm on the sun. I have all the reasons to make sure I have hydrated skin and hair. But if you look into it, silica also pulls heavy metals out of our body. There are a lot of people out there that would love to have the heavy metals pulled out of their body, including me, if I have any. And I'm sure I do. I'm around toxins all the time. But it's just, again, my resume isn't a strong fit with abs, and I'm not going to try and impress you with that. I'm going to just try and it goes back to what we're picking out at the store. If it's in the produce section, it's probably balanced properly. And by that, I mean with mineral content. I've formulated products in the past where I've had to deal with tremendous compromise. And so I would use a model of maybe a lemon, which has perhaps 75 milligrams of potassium and 1 milligram of sodium, and then the rest of the minerals that matter in similar amounts. But a lemon's not the most, lemons are awesome, but lemons aren't necessarily the most nutrition-dense food. Now, you look at the green leaves, and we use some of those in our formula also. The green leaves are where the minerals are, I believe, the most dense and representative of what we need. And kale, I remember when I first started the formula for Superior, I wanted to match the nutritional profile of 8 ounces of kale. And my wife makes a lot of kale. I was in New York City with my daughter last night, and I got a Caesar salad with salmon, and it was kale. And I couldn't believe it. I showed my daughter, she's 20, and I said, this is like I got it at home. I was hoping for romaine. I was hoping for a break, maybe spinach. That's a lot of kale. I ate most of it too, but kale, that was my model. It's funny because we talk about products with 1,000 milligrams of sodium, and kale, 8 ounces of kale, you have to eat 8,000 ounces of kale to get that much sodium.
That's wild. That is wild.
And I have a lot of confidence that I would be really healthy if I ate 8,000 servings of kale over the next 3 months or 6 months. I don't want to do the math, but I realized after half of my non-compete was over that there was no way I was going to touch kale. I couldn't create a product that tasted good, that had the nutritional balance of kale. So everybody should stop drinking any electrolyte products and just go get kale, put it in the Vitamix, add it to spring water, and you will have the best nutrition profile. It beats legumes. It's outstanding. But I don't like the taste of kale that much, so I'm not going to do that. And so therefore, I'll keep doing what I do. I conceded that I couldn't do kale, but I got close to spinach. Spinach has half the nutrition of kale, but it's within reason. And again, about 150 milligrams of potassium. It has maybe 10 milligrams of sodium, might not have that much, but it was the other minerals. That's what I wanted to match. So magnesium, can we get to 10 milligrams of magnesium? That's an electrolyte, a macro essential electrolyte. Chloride, okay, we all have enough chloride, but the chloride's going to come naturally from whatever the sodium source is. We're not going to use sodium chloride because you only get sodium chloride with sodium chloride. How about any sea salt? So we use a couple of sea salts. Pink Himalayan sea salt's a good example. It has sodium, but it also has magnesium and potassium and chromium. Chromium's not an electrolyte, but it's a trace mineral that's good for our blood, and we want our blood to be hydrated. We want to use the other minerals that are good for our blood. If you look at a cereal box, you'll see some of the other minerals that matter. Calcium. Calcium's one that is an essential, macro essential electrolyte. So we have potassium, calcium, magnesium, sodium, and chloride. Those are the 5 we need milligrams of, but those are the 5 maybe not potassium and magnesium, but we certainly have enough sodium because sodium's in everything that comes in a bag or a box. But how about the micro essential electrolytes? Selenium, zinc, and phosphorus. We only need micrograms of those. Now, I know there are a lot of supplements out there, daily multivitamin, multi-mineral will come with those, but I'm not trying to use supplement versions of minerals. I will if I have to, but I'd rather use sources of those minerals that exist in nature. So how about 2 sea salts and 3 plant extracts? You're going to get those minerals from any green leaf. And you're going to get the other minerals that I haven't mentioned. And there are 80 minerals in pink Himalayan sea salt. These are the ions. Electro means energy. Light is derived from the word that means to carry. That's electrolyte. It's energy. The energy comes from the ions. The best water is water that has minerals. The deeper you go below crystals, for example, the more minerals you get. One of my favorite water brands in the world is Crazy Water. And there was some woman apparently that in Texas, and she was not well, and she went to this, I guess, hotel that had water below it that was really minerally, and she drank that water and she became well. And they called her crazy, and so it's Crazy Water. It's a real brand. You can buy it online. I love it. They have number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. Number 4 tastes like minerals. That's the one I'm going to use if I don't feel well. But still, we want more minerals and plant minerals and sea salts. We can add minerals to that. Now, also there are a lot of people using purified water or reverse osmosis or different types of ways to clean water. But by cleaning water, you're taking out the minerals you don't want, like fluoride, for example, but you're adding you're also taking away the minerals you do want, like, say, magnesium. And if you look at a good artesian water, you'll see how much magnesium's in there. And if the water comes from deeper, you'll see there's more magnesium. We want to add the minerals back to the water. I'm okay with people cleaning the water. We have a filter at home. We clean our water. I want the minerals, though. The muscle cells need the water, but the muscle cells need the minerals too. And so those are the main electrolytes. Those are the minerals that we need in milligrams and micrograms. And I don't believe I have a whole lot of competitors that really understand or even care about that.
Yeah. So, selfishly, but also selflessly, especially with my audience, my question is kind of around my lifestyle, around my level of physical activity. What would you, I don't even really want to ask a specific question because I don't feel like I know enough to even ask a specific question. So I'll just ask for your general advice in terms of what foods or what particular minerals that you think I should be consuming more regularly if I'm lifting 3 or 4 days a week and then I'm doing heavy cardiovascular exercise on the other 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, I get asked that question a lot, and I get a lot of people that lead their questions with, "I don't really know enough." And can I ask you, a dumb question? And there is no dumb question. I asked all those questions at one point along the way, and then I re-asked them, and I've been asked all of those. But real food. I mean, the answer is real food and produce. I mean, people say you want to shop the outer walls of a grocery store. I work with a lot of vegetarians and vegans. I'm probably becoming more vegetarian and then vegan every day. I use plant-based options for, say, yogurt. I like Siggy's has a plant-based yogurt that doesn't quite have as much protein, but I like it better and I feel better about it. But I'm not going to make a stance on that so much as I prefer real food over packaged food. I prefer nature-made over natural. To me, the word natural doesn't mean anything. I have worked with boards of directors where they have said, as long as we can say it's natural, it's okay, we can use it, and that's not a qualifier for me. I want something that's actual, that may be found in nature, that is grown in nature, and so from one, I'm an athlete, but not much of one, but I'm pretty active, and I run, and I practice yoga, and I work out regularly, and I'm going to stay strong and fit. And real food, good water, and if it's clean water, fine. Add minerals, electrolytes, but you don't have to add my product. There are other sources of sea salts available all over the world. There are many plants that you can blend, and you can go to a juice shop all over New York City. They have them. All over the world they have them. But the answer is real food. And the older I get, the less I supplement my real food with anything else.
Interesting. So I guess my question, because I'm happy you mentioned like there's no stupid questions, because I feel like there's a bunch that come to my brain and I'm like, I feel embarrassed to even ask. So what's the difference? Okay, so like I was listening to your podcast, one of the podcasts that was on YouTube, and you were talking about how your minerals, or at least most of your minerals, come from in Superior. They come from real food. Is that correct?
Sources found in nature.
Yeah.
Something that could be eaten. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, as opposed to something that's purified or created in a laboratory.
In a lab.
I'll give you one quick example. We use acerola berry for vitamin C. I think I can name 3 of my 10 biggest competitors used to use something made from fruit, but don't any longer. I know why, and they know why. But
is it pricing?
But acerola berry is a tart cherry that has all of the components of vitamin C, not just ascorbic acid, which is the one component that can be synthesized in a laboratory. It's a miracle. It was invented about 90 years ago. But ascorbic acid, or any other form of synthetic vitamin C, I would prefer real food vitamin C for the other components of vitamin C. That's an example of food source versus laboratory. Another way we like to say it is we like our farm to start with an F, not a PH.
So what's the difference? Is the difference only measurable in how your body reacts, or?
Absolutely. There's a book called Supplements Exposed, written by Dr. Brian Clement, that has a page. You can go to the back and look at vitamin C, and then you read the page, and it's if I'm not mistaken, it's written or about the person that invented vitamin C, and somebody had some sort of ailment, and the invention did not make that person well. And however, paprika, which is rich in vitamin C, did make that person well. And it's the complete vitamin. It's the whole. It's what the body can absorb. It's readily available. To me, that's the easiest way to say it is, if you want to use man-made lab forms of the ingredients that you can get from nature, I don't believe the body can break them down as well. And the reason is they're not complete. So magnesium, for example, my studies show that your body can absorb magnesium better when it comes with something that has chromium or calcium or phosphorus. But if it's just the magnesium supplement, like a citrate, I don't believe, I've never seen any study that shows that's going to be better absorbed. As a matter of fact, it might have some ill effects on the stomach. So that's the real food has balances that the body can absorb, and the balance is key. Something synthetically made, again, I'm not trying to win over 100% of the audience, and I'm sure there are people that would prefer the farm with a pH, but not me.
No, I'm with you on that. I think a part where I'm confused, and probably humbly confused, is the difference between. So how do you make like Superior compared to like a supplement that's lab made? Like what's the difference? If it's a powder and it has all these ingredients in it, how is it different than something that's lab made?
I'll go back to magnesium. I think it's the number one mineral that I want more of in my body if I can get it, and I got a lot of it last night because I ate a lot of kale. But Magnesium as a supplement, there are many forms. There's a glycinate, there's a citrate. Citrate is when you take the magnesium molecule and attach it to a corn molecule so that the body can actually absorb that corn molecule and thereby hopefully absorb the magnesium molecule. It's a chelate. It's a form of magnesium. It's a supplement form. I don't have any confidence that that's going to be better absorbed by my body than, say, a sea salt, like trace minerals from inland sea minerals from, say, Utah salts, which is what we use, where you're getting many minerals, including magnesium, but that magnesium is ionic. It's basically the same weight as our muscle cells. It is shown to be better absorbed. And that's the key. Not how much magnesium can I get in my body, but how much magnesium can my body absorb. I don't believe 500 milligrams in a supplement the intention is to get us to absorb all 500 milligrams. I think the intention is to get us to absorb some of it. However, when I put a little sea salt or I ate my kale, I believe my body's going to absorb as much of that magnesium as it can use. And that's what I want to get. I want the nutrients my body can use. I don't want to overdo it because then I feel like I might be not balanced. It's not a proper balance. Then I'm going to have some rejection. And again, sodium is the easiest example. I see people that consume too much salt, and I see people that sweat too much. And I say, sweating's healthy, but the body rejecting excess sodium is not a sign of what I consider to be good health.
So how do you make Superior? How is it created so that it comes from real food?
Yeah, we source from pink Himalayan sea salt. People say, well, there is no Himalayan sea. Well, there was thousands of years ago, hundreds of thousands of years ago. It dried up. It is now a salt mine underneath what is now Pakistan, and so we're talking about salt that doesn't even have plastics in it, which is pretty amazing. But there are many other. I love Celtic sea salt. There's a local salt to where I live, Amagansett sea salt. We have a bottle of that, and just sprinkle a little bit on cucumbers or on a salad. Not a lot, just a little, but you're getting minerals. We take possession of these raw materials, and then the plants. I have just coincidentally one of my 5 close friends, but 2 of my overall good friends are in the industry of raw materials, and kind of in the right place at the right time. I remember going to my grandmother's ranch in California, and she had orchards of oranges and avocados and lemons, and you could get lost in there. It was pretty cool. And she had her own garden as well, and she had plants in there. And when I told her I wanted to create an electrolyte drink, she says, "Well, let's go get some ingredients." So we went and we got some lemons and we got some green leaves, and that's what I'm talking about, Jason, is are you using ingredients that exist in the earth, or are you manufacturing from corn? I can't do it personally. My nephew can, and he's offered to do it for me. He can take corn and create synthetic vitamin C. But I want to pick my vitamin C from a tree.
Right.
That's the difference. We take possession of our raw materials. We control the process of blending them together. This has taken years and years and years of learning and testing and measuring, and by measuring I mean absorption and what the heart rate will be. I have seen studies where a high sodium product increases the heart rate by 8 beats per minute for an athlete. That's crazy.
That's wild.
And so they do it on purpose. So I would rather my heart work less hard, especially if I'm going to run a marathon. But if I'm running a mile or 100, which you'll beat me, but I want to measure what's best for the body. I've done that. I've spent almost a career doing that. I've seen the science. I've listened to the athletes, and I've learned that ingredients that are already existing before humans got here are better choices nutritionally than anything coming out of a laboratory, I understand I may well be in the minority, but I'm not trying to win over 100% of the audience. I'm only trying to win over those of us that agree with me that adding salt to something doesn't make it better.
Interesting. So what does the process look like to get something that's grown from the earth to get it into a powder? If you wanted, like, maybe just give like one mineral as an example that goes into the powder.
Well, I'll give one great example is we use a leaf, the stevia leaf extract, and I'm not talking about a sweetener. If it's a sweetener, maybe called stevia or monk fruit, it's actually going to be thickened with erythritol in a laboratory through a perhaps 42-step patented process that includes ethanol and methanol. We're not talking about something that, again, I remember listening to the question. The question was, can we call that natural? And the honest answer under oath is yes. But that does not happen naturally. And we use the leaf, not the sweetener. The leaf is where the minerals are. Now, again, this is totally different. The sweetener has a metallic aftertaste. It's patented. It's in everything at the big stores. And it is unbelievably profitable. I believe it'll be the first $1 trillion sweetener. However, people were having heart attacks and heart issues, and I read a study. This is a Cleveland Clinic published study from the spring that said they were curious. Why were people having issues? And they found by accident that the thickener in those sweeteners, erythritol, is causing 50% increase. Google it. Cleveland Clinic study on erythritol or stevia, whatever. We're talking about a sweetener, a manufactured, man-made invention. It's unbelievable. I've seen the original patent from 2007. It's unbelievably profitable, but it's the opposite of what I want in my diet or my family's diet. I don't see anything healthy about it at all or natural. I would rather take that same leaf and not use erythritol to thicken it and not use a 42-step process to make it into something super sweet. And by super sweet, that means you don't need that much, so that means more margin. I would rather take a water-extracted leaf and try to get some minerals. And if by accident it has some sweetness, okay, I can live with that. That's an example. You take. I used to own an herb company, and I worked with a bigger herb company that sold that brand, and we would standardize the herbs, and we would see what the actual mineral profile, the ratios, what is the nutrition in that herb. Those things matter to me. That market barely exists today. But we're talking about taking something from a plant. And in today's world, I think the goal is to say it's a plant, but turn it into something that couldn't be farther from the plant.
Wow. So is it ground up? How does it turn into a powder?
You could take a leaf and from your garden at home or from a weed and let it dry on the windowsill in the sun, and eventually get dry enough you can crumble it up. That's one way to do it.
And the minerals are still all in there?
You can't really say the minerals are all in there because they will oxidize, meaning the oxygen will have an effect on it.
Yeah.
But or you could take that leaf and use a extraction process, maybe a very time-consuming water extraction, hopefully maybe cold water, which is going to be less less violent to the mineral profile. But then again, you can take raw spinach and saute it, and it's still pretty darn healthy, but not as healthy as the raw spinach.
Right.
But yes, the simplest way to explain how you take the leaf and put it in my product is it's an extraction process where the goal is to take nutrition from the plant.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in a category with the other products in the category use a sweetener that might say the name of a plant or a fruit, but there is no actual fruit. And again, I'm going by FDA. The FDA will stipulate you can't actually list any milligrams of that plant or that fruit. I guess they can get away with saying it because they do, but there are no milligrams of it. And in my product, one of the things that's basically front and center in every presentation I make is we are unique in the electrolyte category because we use and list milligrams from actual plant and sea minerals. Sea salts, plant extracts, these are sources of milligrams. And by milligrams, I mean we list on our packaging the milligrams. If I was using a sweetener made from a plant, I wouldn't be able to list the plant because there wouldn't be any plant. I use an extract or a sea salt, and I list the milligrams. That's the difference.
Wow. Interesting. Now, so random question that pops in my head. Well, there's a bunch. The first one is a little bit sidetracked, but it's still a question nonetheless. Is there, I feel like asking a specific question is not really possible. The thing I'm thinking about specifically is I know that there's, and granted, I don't know the science, so I could just be talking out of my ass to be completely transparent. But I've heard that if you blend like a banana, it's not as healthy as you eating it naturally.
I don't necessarily agree with that. Are we talking about peeling and then blending the entire fruit part of the banana?
Yeah.
Versus eating that fruit part of the banana?
Yeah. Because I heard I heard people talking about it on a podcast. We're talking about like Weight Watchers point wise. It's like more points if you blend it for some reason because something with the molecular structure of what you're eating. But this is not based on science that I read. This is just anecdotal what I've heard from other people. I don't know if that's true, if it's different with certain minerals. If you're like, yeah, listen, the reason why I ask is I'm thinking like spinach is the first thing that comes to my mind because I don't like the taste of it. So usually what I would do is either put it in a smoothie or I would just grab a handful and just eat it before I would eat my dinner. I don't know if there's a difference or.
I will say this: if you take a carrot and peel it, you're peeling away probably the most nutrient dense part of the vegetable. If you take that same carrot and don't peel it and put it in your smoothie, and in my smoothie it'd be made from a Vitamix. If I take a banana and put it in the Vitamix, and then the spinach, and then maybe add some coconut milk, a little Vita Coco, and then maybe I'll put in some turmeric and some spice, which really pulls the gunk from my body, I hope. And I could put together a smoothie that you and I would love. And I think if I took a bite out of a banana, by the time it got to my stomach, it wouldn't be any different than if I blended that same bite up in a Vitamix. I don't buy it. The structure, I don't buy that. I think that this is the key is, are you going to eat the banana? And if you eat the banana, you're going to get the potassium that's in the banana. If you're cutting out a brown spot, no problem. That's not where the nutrition is. That's the bruise is damaged. There might be something in there that's good for you. I don't know. But the bottom line is, I would say that, like juice, for example, if you're taking 8 oranges and making orange juice by squeezing them, now you're actually reducing the nutrition because you're not getting the fiber. But if you take those same 8 oranges, and we're going to peel them either way. But if you take 8 oranges and use one of those juicers, you'll get some fiber. But if you use a Vitamix and you put the entire orange peeled in the Vitamix and grind the heck out of it, blend it, you're going to get all the fiber. Whereas if you're using one of those handheld juicers, you can see the fiber that you're losing. Plus, it's still inside the rind that you're using, to grind it down. So, I don't think it makes any difference. Back to the banana.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters. It certainly does not matter to me how my kids consume a banana, whether it's in a smoothie. Now, again, if it's banana juice that's added to a smoothie, it might not be the whole banana. Right. But if I'm actually taking the banana, peeling it, putting it in the Vitamix, and then adding other things, that's as good to me. Now back to spinach. The raw spinach in the smoothies is healthy as eating the spinach by itself. However, if you cook the spinach, you're going to diminish the nutritional value.
Got it.
Although it's still good for you.
Got it. One of the things I wanted to ask from an athlete's perspective is there a certain timing that matters in terms of getting your minerals? Or is there not necessarily matters, because obviously it's like if there's only one time a day you can have it, you may as well take it. Is there optimal timing if you're weight training, if you're doing cardiovascular exercise?
Absolutely. Again, my mother used to win races, and so she taught me a lot about race nutrition, race day nutrition. And I remember being at the starting line of the biggest marathon in my mind, my favorite one. And the woman that ended up winning, I remember she was eating cooked but cold little red Spanish potatoes, raw, not raw, cold at the starting line. And she won that race, and she won it again the next year.
At the starting line.
She was awesome. And now again at the Boston Marathon starting line, I've run it. You're there for a while before the race starts, and even the winners, I wonder how she got there and when she got there. But she was there for a while before the start, and I was there with her, and bland food for that type of setting. So maybe dry 7-grain bread, toasted, but no butter, no fats. It's funny, I grew up in a world where there was a big spaghetti dinner before the marathon. I never actually ate a spaghetti dinner before a marathon. I get the idea, but I would rather be a little more bland and a little more nutrient dense in my diet. I actually took an athlete to a major marathon to qualify for hopefully the Olympic trials, and he almost did. He was second in that race. He was winning most of it. He's now our medical advisor, Dr. John Sillery, by the way. Wow. But I took him to a marathon. He's vegan. He hates the title, so he's not vegan, but he doesn't eat anything that's not considered vegan. And I agree with him. I think that he eats plant food. He eats the best diet of anybody I know, Dr. John Sillery. And we went to this marathon in Dallas, and I took him to a restaurant before, and he got a burger and fries, and he put the fries on the burger and ate it all at once. And then he went and ran and almost won the race. And then went back the next year and got second again.
That's bizarre.
But and then he became a doctor, and now he's one of the smartest, fittest people I know. And that's not the ideal mineral timing, but it certainly didn't hurt him.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with one of my reps yesterday about an athlete that's a pretty good triathlete, getting better, training for the Ironman, probably will get there. And, the whole sodium thing. And I said, well, psyche's big. If you think it's working for you, I don't want to mess with that. I don't want to mess with the psyche. However, he's young, he's fit, he'll be able to overcome it. But I think he could help himself by getting more nutrients other than sodium, meaning the other milligrams, the other minerals like magnesium. So in a workout, you mentioned weight training. So you want to do electrolytes before and during, and then after you can have your protein. You could mix branch chain amino acids with your electrolytes before or during. You could add them after. As a runner, there are foods I can eat. In my old world, I'd run a marathon with a goo packet safety pinned to my shorts. But in my new world, I would chop up real food and put it in a Ziploc bag and have that safety pinned inside my shorts. So that way, if I get hungry, I get more nutrients from something a little bit more, something found in nature. And always trying to improve. And the key always is water. And we need water before, during, and after the workout. People say, well, you can't drink too much water. Yeah, if you're not getting your minerals, hyponatremia is when you're actually drinking too much water. You can essentially drown yourself. But in my world, we're getting the minerals. If you're drinking my product, you're getting the minerals. You can't drink too much water if you're getting the minerals with the water. Now, if you're eating a lot of spinach and drinking water that has no minerals, you can still also have plenty of minerals in your muscle cells. It might not be absorbed as quickly. It takes time to digest that spinach. Whereas I'm in a world where I want the muscle cells to benefit from those nutrients right away or within 10 minutes at least. And I've found a way to make that happen, and we can feel that. But there's plenty of do's and don'ts, and the do's are something that your stomach agrees with.
Mm-hmm.
The don'ts are, don't try something new race day. Somebody comes to an expo at a big event and wants my product, loves the whole idea of it. I will say, look, start on Tuesday, not tomorrow, because as much as I know this is going to be good in your body, I don't want to mess with your psyche, because then I'm going to be if you don't have a good race, I'm this is the reason. And so those are the some of the critical do's and don'ts. There are other don'ts. Can I say this? Can you eat jelly beans? I mean, jelly beans, really? But in a world where people think salt is, adding salt to something is a healthy choice.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of candy while, trying to perform at my best. But you will see jelly beans out there. Now, also, I ran a 10K as a 10-year-old, and I was a sensation. It was awesome. It was really cool. That was fun success.
Wow.
I'll never get to that level again. And somebody at the finish gave me an orange, and I ate it, and I threw it up right away. The acidity got to me. So we just want to make smart choices. And with my world of running, like a triathlete. I'm a triathlete. I love to talk about nutrition for a triathlon. So if you're going to start with a swim, you want to eat about an hour before the start. You want to drink lots of water. If you drink coffee normally, definitely consume coffee before. Maybe you don't have to drink as much, but I'm a coffee drinker, and I will have my coffee second thing in the morning after I have my electrolytes. Again, I want energy, so electrolytes first, but then I'll boil the water for my coffee. My wife and I make a French roast, and we make it ourselves, so that way we control our consumption, because I'll drink everything that's made. But and then maybe an hour later, pee before the race kind of idea, but eat some food that's dry and bland, swim, and then you get on the bike. Now get your carbs. Get your carbs, but not from glucose or from maltodextrin or something that's, engineered in a laboratory, but rather get some real food, sliced pears. That's pretty easy on the body. There are many bars out there that have real ingredients, and by that I mean not natural, but something that actually, if you read an ingredient that exists in the earth, yeah, that's healthy. I like that. I'm signing off on that. Hey, those Spanish red potatoes cooked but cold, pretty filling, pretty rich in carbs, and heck, there's a little bit of sodium in there compared to most fruits and vegetables. So there's one for you. But don't put salt on it to make it. It won't make it better. Yeah. And then when the bike portion of the triathlon is finishing, the run, again, your stomach can't take as much for the run, so you want to get away from the carbs and go more with electrolytes and lots of fluids, and hope for that one clean porta-john along the way, because recycling cells, and everyone knows what I mean, very healthy, but that's biology.
So we have a closing tradition on the podcast, and it's a question. It's a difficult question because it's hard to kind of boil things down sometimes, especially into one word. But I found it to be a very helpful question for my thought process, as well as ask it, very enticing and interesting to ask other people as well. So the question is, it actually requires a context as well. So you're on your deathbed. It's your last day on earth, and you can't leave anything behind. There's no nutritional advice. There's no life advice. There's no philosophy. There's no podcast. People can't read a book. They can't read a blog. Nothing. Zero. All they can read is Seth Bovio and one word on your grave to leave the world to see for their life. What's that word?
Gosh, the first things that come to mind are not one word. Was here, smiled. There, that's one. But let me think about this. I'm on my deathbed, but I'm also under the ground. Is that right, Jason?
Well, it's you have to choose one word when you're on your deathbed, because your grave
word's going on my grave for when I'm done.
Not even your
on
name.
My deathbed.
Not even yes. You get
the stone has one word.
Stone has one word on it, and it's
Glad it doesn't have my name, by the way. I want to point that out.
Just the word.
Minerals. I get this question. Are your minerals organic? And I love answering minerals are not, by definition, organic. They're in the soil. They come through the plants. We eat the plants. Biology, back to the soil. So, that's my stone, minerals. I like my answer.
Love it. Before we wrap up, I will say this, and I'm not, the one thing people will know about me, especially after I started my TikTok page a couple, like two and a half years ago, I grew that TikTok. I got banned since, but I was at like 270,000 followers, and my videos were getting a couple million views sometimes, and there were some pretty hefty offers for advertising, and one of the things that I never accepted any of them because I'm a big believer, similar to you, in not promoting BS. And not promoting things just because I want to make a buck, because I believe in having integrity and sticking to your true values. And I will say this about the product. I can hold it, actually. This, I had it at Paul's camp when I filmed. And I am being so honest with you when I say this. It was the first time when I had something that was not only good for you, but tasted good, but that I actually felt the difference. Because I hit the gym right after I left, and I had worked from 8:30 that morning till whenever the camp ended at like 3, and I was filming the whole time. I'm pretty exhausted. And then I went to hit the gym. I'm telling you, you can even ask my friend Matt. I was like, I actually feel this. You weren't paying me to take it. You were just giving out free samples. Like, wow, I filled my little cup up with it, and I went to the gym, and it was amazing. I truly felt good, and it tasted good. And I didn't have the one thing that I noticed, and it's kind of weird. I didn't have that weird, like that little like sticky taste on my tongue after. I'm assuming from like sugary drinks like Gatorade and stuff.
It's the manufactured sweetener that's
right.
in everything.
And I was like, I actually felt good. And as you're drinking it, as the workout progressed, I was like, I actually feel better. And he didn't ask me to do this. I'm just telling you straight up, like, this is a product I fully endorse. And take that for what it's worth. I've been working out for years. I've been lifting for years. I've been doing cardio for years. I actually truly felt amazing when I was drinking it. And for whoever that means anything to, it's Superior, Superieur, just like the lake. But yeah,
the original French spelling of what is now Americanized Lake Superior.
Lake Superior, correct.
But Jason, I didn't know you were going to go work out, and I didn't actually see you drink the product. But now that I know you drank the product and went and worked out, I could have told you that you would have felt the difference.
Yeah.
And what is the reason in one word? Minerals.
Period. Ladies and gentlemen, Seth Bovio, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate you. Seriously.
Jason.